Welcome to the Mindset Evolution podcast, powered by Self-Recoding, world-class consulting and coaching services that you can access at selfrecoding.com. Self-Recoding is a unique blend of neurohealing modalities that will empower you to reach your full potential. Join thousands of others who have experienced rapid results in their journey of personal growth. Now enjoy our show where we bring you tools for a powerful mind with your hosts, Tait and Daisy Papp.
And hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Mindset Evolution podcast, brought to you by Bold and Blonde. I'm Tait, the Bold, and with me, as always, Daisy Papp, our resident blonde. Hi, Daisy.
Hi, my dear friend down under. Yes, I'm so glad that we are creating a new show that we are recording, and it's been a while and life is happening. And absolutely, I so appreciate our listeners' patience and that they stick around and that they're looking out for the next episode and push the notification button. And I'm really grateful for that. So thank you, dear listeners. And thank you, Kathy. So what's up your sleeves?
Yes. Well, up my sleeve today, Daisy, is something that's been at the back of my mind for a while, considering the state of the world and all the crazy things happening. We spoke about crazy world, but today I want to get a little bit more specific and speak about tolerance. Now, I think tolerance generally is a really good thing. It's a trait that allows us to live and let live a little bit. I think mostly that's positive. But I also think that at a certain point, societies become too tolerant and then some stuff goes down that we don't want happening. And that's evident around the world in lots of places. So I want to talk about that today and talk about where is that line where we should be tolerant and at what point are we being over-tolerant?
The short thought to this I'm sharing with you, it's a lack of standard, and it's, I don't think, heightened tolerance. I think it's a lack of standards. Now, I wonder, can you give a specific example? Just one of the many.
Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb here. In Australia, they've been letting in a lot of immigrants. Now, it's a little bit different to America's situation where I know that this is happening as well. But in Australia, we're an island. The government's allowed them to come in. And now we're seeing masses and masses in our streets that are disrespecting, the lack of respect for people coming into your country and not assimilating into your way of life. And I think that's what's got Australians so upset. They're coming to our country and then saying that they hate it and causing trouble and creating big protests. And I understand that there's reasons behind that too. But then for Australians, we're like, you want to come to our country, we want you to want to be an Australian. If you want to stay the way you are, then stay in your own country. And I guess that's probably my biggest example right now because of how the world is. But I think that it's an indicative example of things happening in other countries as well. So I think probably the biggest example for me I can think of right now is happening here in Australia, where there's been a high number of immigrants come in that are from very culturally different backgrounds to us. Now, Australia is a bit of a melting pot. We have a lot of different cultures all into one. But for the most part, those cultures have come here and been happy to assimilate, happy to take on what we see as the Australian way of life with Australian values. But recently, there seems to have been a huge influx of people from a certain culture who do not respect our way of life, who are coming here and causing trouble. And I feel like this is not the only country that is happening in. It's happening, I see it in the UK, I see it in America. And so maybe it is all across the Western worlds that it is happening. And I think that to a certain point, Australians themselves are very laid back. We're very tolerant. And that is how we've come to be a melting pot, because we've welcomed people with open arms. But at what point do we say, no, if you want to come and live in our country, you've got to be prepared to speak our language, live by our values, act appropriately according to our laws, be respectful of other Australians, all these things that I'm sure every country wants. And so at what point do we say, no, you're not acting appropriately, you cannot stay?
I'm with you on that. Look, I'm an immigrant.
As am I.
So sometimes people migrate because they flee from circumstances that are just threatening their dignity and their life. That is one case scenario. There are millions of different and unique situations, I'm certain, and I'm not saying one for all. But when we look at a cultural background, yes, I was born and raised in Germany. I do cook German food at the house. Nevertheless, I respect the American way of life because that's the country I live in. Yeah? Now, the key is building bridges for understanding. Because when we look at travel, usually we enjoy, the majority of humans who travel, enjoy different cultures. They enjoy seeing different ways of life and living. They enjoy different food, different clothing, different behaviors, different traditions, different habits. And for most international travelers, it's fascinating to see that. So I think it is important that people keep up their cultural background and keep it alive. Because, look, I do not recall that I chose to be born in Germany and then be German, partially, because my father was not German. And I paid it forward towards my son because I wanted him to know of his roots. So he speaks German. He knows how to cook some German dishes. He knows a lot of German cultural habits and traditions and the way people express themselves or what means what. So I find that is important. Nevertheless, it is also important that I adjust to where I live. Now, when we look at the greater scale, humans around the world, I'm not saying all of them, but many humans around the world believe that it's possible to shape Earth to their needs. Instead of accepting the fact that Earth is a given and Earth can live without us. We cannot live without Earth. Now, on a smaller scale, I can live in another country, but when I live here in America, then there are specific rules that America can live without me. Me being a resident here, me having family and friends here, me having my business here and associates, it is important for me that I adjust to a degree. I can still be German at heart, who is Americanized to a degree. And I can build bridges. There are a lot of things that when I moved into this country 16 years ago, I had no idea why are they doing what they do when they do it. And I came to understand because my curiosity was still high. Now, oftentimes when there are people who are scared and hushed away from their homeland, they hold on to the smallest things they can, and that's their culture and their habits, because that's the only security they can feel at the time. And because they hold so much onto it, to me, understandingly so, that shuts them out and they don't want to and they cannot comprehend that, oh, so I arrived. They're somewhere still back home. Emotionally. They're physically in a new home, new country, new cultural setting. But emotionally, they didn't arrive. And many of them don't want to arrive. And on a global scale, I don't know how to go about it. But this is how I strongly feel about it, that how it shall be, that's my wish and my vision for humanity. Creating peace or supporting the creation of peace in countries, supporting economy in countries so that people can stay where they feel they belong. Instead of them feeling like I must flee because they killed my entire family and now I'm scared to death and now I need to flee. Or I apply for visa or for refugee status around the world. So there are lots of countries, as you mentioned, I know of many countries in Europe who are facing very similar facts as you down under, that some citizens don't feel their country doing for the citizens, but doing more for people who come visit or come to stay. I know of people in several countries in Europe who moved from the crosswalk to the other side of the street because those who are visiting or who want to make a new home in that country, they would not make way for people who belong there. So it's a very delicate topic because I know how it feels not to feel safe. I've been there. I know how it feels to arrive in a country that is not my cultural background. I've lived many places, overseas in specific directions, back and forth. So the building bridges is the key here. And I think it is not the citizens' position to lower their tolerance. I think it is a communication to communicate with the leaders, hey, we are your people and we want to embrace others who want to be part of us people. And let's agree upon specific standards. I know of countries in Europe where those who fled their home country and now reside in a new country, they make more or they receive more government help than the average citizen who works full time. Those who arrived, they will sooner or later communicate with their friends and family back home. Hey, look, so I don't have to work and I have a good living. They're providing for everything. All I do is be.
So it sounds to me like as citizens of whichever country we're in, that we perhaps need to be louder to our government to, one, make sure that our country's values are talked about and upheld, and two, that they also have those same standards for anybody coming into the country.
Now, that would mean, though, that what defines the Australian, because now in your case, what you brought up as an example, so what is it that belongs to the cultural heritage? What is it? What are the ingredients? What is it that's to be upheld? What is it that we want to hold on to? And what is it that we maybe can renew or remodel or adjust a little bit? Because not everything that was there in the past agreed upon is still good and applicable today or opportune today. But what are really the roots? What are the essences of your particular culture? What are the essences of any other particular culture? And until that is not defined, it is a challenge to speak up no matter how loud you are. It must be a very clear definition. So I think there is a Latin expression which says cui bono, meaning who benefits. I sometimes wonder who benefits from the mass migrations. Because when I speak to people who fled, they'd love to be back home. They'd love to see peace and the opportunity and possibilities to make a living there where their roots are, amongst their people, amongst their language, amongst their nature, amongst their history.
Yeah.
So, cui bono. Now, when we think about it, when we unroot the people, no matter where you come from, no matter where you live, no matter what's your cultural background, your beliefs, but when you're disconnected from the roots, how are you going to be nurtured? Look at a tree. I'm not comparing humans to a tree, but energetically maybe a little bit. So there are roots, and then there's the sky. So when we get disconnected, many people, no matter their faith, are haunted and chased for their faith. In many countries, in some countries, the origin of thousands of years, there was a specific faith, and they are now chased for their own faith. You gotta be kidding. So that means when the roots are disconnected, what happens to a tree that you pull out at the stem with all the roots underneath? What happens to that tree? It dies.
Similarly, if you cut it off at the roots, it would also die.
Some roots are still strong enough that then the roots regrow. Nature, I'm not a biologist by no means. But when we do that to humans and we disconnect them, I see that when I work with adopted humans. No matter how long ago that was. My entire life met one single man who's Canadian, who is adopted, who has such a healthy way of speaking about it and the gratitude he feels. He's the one and only man or human that I ever met during my career, my work, or my travels, my life, who was really mentally, emotionally, totally settled and connected and not traumatized by the fact that he was adopted. Now, again, you pull out the tree with all the roots, it will die. Now, in nature, oftentimes when you try to transplant a tree, it won't be able to grow or survive at the new location. And that is what I see happening because, in addition to that, I believe we are all spiritual beings as well. And when we're disconnected from our roots, and we're disconnected or supposed to be disconnected or suppressed our connection, spiritually, it's very dangerous. And now again, I wonder, cui bono, who benefits? And why is it that it's happening around the world? How interesting. And where does it happen? In which countries of the Western world does it happen more than in others?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because I think right now a lot of countries are struggling with this sudden change. Influxes of people are happening in lots of parts of the world, and Australia definitely is not the only one experiencing this. And I don't know if we're the most laid-back culture in the world or not because I see other countries struggling with it too.
Yeah.
It seems to me that we have to come back to our cultural standards. And I know for us, that's a problem. We are such a young country. We have struggled with expressing what our real values and standards are here. And I think that's something that urgently needs to be discussed at a national level. And we definitely have people in our government not acting in the best interests of its citizens. And I don't think Australia is alone there either.
Certainly not.
Europe, I feel, have much older cultures, and so they know who they are.
But the same is happening.
Yes, which is what I find distressing because European countries do know who they are. They've got this rich history, a long history. They know what they value in each of those countries. They seem still to be struggling with the same issues, though. To me, it seems, and I'm going to say it, as a white person, and a lot I would class Europe, America, Canada, England, Australia, New Zealand, all as Western or Caucasian cultures. And I feel like we are too tolerant and do not stand up for ourselves enough. And I feel like there's a lot of reverse racism going on in these times against us as well. And that makes it even more important for us to have the guts to stand up and speak out. And some people are doing that, and I give them kudos. And I know that over here in Australia, we're starting to see more local people run for local parliament in order to make a difference, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's what I actually think has to happen to make this change. We have to come back down to our communities, and we have to start with those standards in each community and go, what do we stand for? Who do we want representing us? What voice do we want to send to Parliament? And if every community around the country started thinking like that and electing people who had the people's best interests in heart, maybe we can get rid of some of the rot that is in our governments. And I feel like that probably would work everywhere. Back to basics, back to local communities, back to our culture of the country you're living in, and what are our standards for ourselves? What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? What are we going to allow and what are we not? And then we need to come together and have that voice, because in my opinion, the only thing stopping that happening is too many people are still falling for the divide and conquer.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Now, there's an old saying, I forgot who said it first or who gets the credits for that quote. When you want to change the world, change your village. When you want to change your village, change your family. When you want to change your family, change yourself now. Only when I know what values are my standard will I be able to see when other people have different standards, and then therefore I can make different decisions. Now, the only way how I see it possibly happening is education, not teaching, not preaching, educating, building bridges. Look, this is where we came from. Humans made many, way too many mishaps. Not mistakes, they were lessons. And the question is, how often must specific happenings or mishaps repeat themselves until the lesson can be learned and is learned so we can then step to the next level? I believe truly what's very important that we connect human to human directly. Sit on a park bench without the electronics. Start to learn, because many don't know anymore how to communicate in person. They're very good at chit-chatting. They're very good at bullying anonymously. That's coward. No. Learn. You learn about yourself when you learn about others. Stick to your standards. What is your cultural background? Learn about that. Redefine what is important for me. What did my ancestors endure, fight for, loved, and passed on? What is it? How many things of those, without changing or wanting to change the culture, what is it that still supports me, my life in the 21st century? Because history, when we look at rich cultures or old cultures, there are cultures you would never ever think that they are one of the oldest cultures in this world, because they're also framed, and then they get bombed to destroy the treasures, the old. That's again the uprooting. Destroy the roots so the growth will stop, and then disconnect. Very dangerous. So it starts within. What are standards that no matter what cultural background you are, no matter what traditions you celebrate or cherish, what are some things that we can agree upon? I had a very nice conversation and connection with a German doctor. He's also active around the world, very intelligent and very spiritual man. And we spoke about the 5+2, and he sees it. Because I can believe in whatever I can believe in. But when I agree to live my life based on the 5+2, consideration, admiration, respect, empathy, dignity. Have a word. Say what you mean what you say, and then follow through in a timely manner or timely fashion. Now, when we can all agree upon that, no matter where you come from, no matter where you're going, the togetherness will be happening on a very different plane. And when we make that as a basics, you can keep your roots, I can keep mine, and these are the rules of the game. So I will respect that you believe what you believe, knowing that you will respect that I believe what I believe.
Yeah, I think that the 5+2 and its message is foundational, and it's a good place to start, especially the discussion within your own family, because you're right about education. A lot of what we see happening, in my opinion, is because the ball has been dropped. And we need to pick it back up, and we need to form these bonds and have these values in place. And where is it more important than in raising an adult? The 5+2 should be in every school in the world.
I heard that this week about 5 times from 5 different people in 5 different countries. Yeah. Elementary. That's how they call it here. Elementary school.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Now, when we then think it shall be taught, or your opinion, I'm on the same page with you that I wish I would had access to it when I was 3, 4, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 years old. But I have access to it now, and I can pay it forward. Now, the appreciation of life itself is a very important aspect to it. And gratitude. Having gratitude, being in the flow of life through breath. Yeah, breathe in, exhale, and being grateful at the same time. The key to it is that you breathe in a little faster than you exhale, a little longer, and at the same time you're grateful and connect to your heart. science, I didn't come up with this, brain-heart coherence happens. Coherence meaning harmony, not balance, harmony. Now, when that happens and we then meet, imagine what is possible. And when we look at biology and we look at the species Homo sapiens, and at birth, there are two possibilities. It's either XX chromosome or XY chromosome, period. When you start, or anyone starts to confuse me about what I am and who I am, I can lead you wherever I want to lead you. Again, it's confusion. When you are confused, when you are scared, when you are in fear, then you can be easily manipulated.
As can young minds who don't know any better yet.
They are sponges.
Yes, they
They're
don't
sponges.
have the experience or the wisdom to know any better or to compare it against something else.
Now, when you cut off culture and the cultural background, how easy would it be to give a new standard? No, this is how it is.
Yeah.
Careful.
And that probably leads into a much deeper conversation.
That's a salon talk, though.
Some of the things happening. Absolutely. But today I think that we've nutted this out. So let's recap. Tolerance is important, but standing behind it, we must have standards, cultural standards that enable us to reach each other as human beings, from human to human. We must take our power back with local action in our own communities and families. To be the change, it starts with us. And then we must educate. And Daisy and I highly recommend grabbing the 5+2 book. We'll put a link in it below for you to be able to do that. But they have a set of values that we believe can change lives. And it is a starting point if you have nothing else. I think that if we can restart these conversations and start supporting each other as human beings, and not necessarily seeing our differences, but seeing how we are the same, we could nurture those connections and move away from this constant warring world we have going on and bring it back to values being the most important thing, that we are all human beings, that we are all worthy, that we are all of the divine. It's in all of us, and that makes us all the same at the root of us. Wherever you're brought up, however you're brought up, in what world, what country, what culture, the root of it, we are all human beings who all deserve love and experience here. And I think that certainly, as we say over and over again, everything starts with self, because that is what we have control over. That is what we can change, is our actions, our decisions, our responses, and it must grow from there.
I agree. One last thought on this. Wherever I look, when I work with people from around the world, different cultures, different backgrounds, different ages, all of their ancestors have one thing in common, no matter where they came from, no matter the traditions they cherished, no matter the culture they were born into or chose to live by or live with or live in. They all wanted to live a contented life where there is opportunity, where there is connection. When we go back to that, then we have a wonderful and wonder-filled future. And agreeing upon basic standards is so simple, but only when it's out there. And we are many.
Well said.
We are many. I see it around the world.
We are many. And together,
we are strong.
That's it from us today. We are Bold and Blonde.
Mindset Evolution. Talk to you next time. Thank you for listening in to the Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution podcast. Please share our show with your family and friends. Together, we make this world a better place for you, for us, for future generations. When you need consulting or coaching, visit selfrecoding.com. Also, please remember to rate us 5 stars and leave a review, and support us at baldandblonde.live. Talk to you soon.